Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Live with Roger Hanson. This is Roger Hanson, and today I have a special guest that I was able to get to come on to the show to do an interview. His name is Michael Paul. I watched an interview that he had done on The Wonderful World of Weirdness, and old John told me that I needed to talk to him, and from what I was able to get from the conversation, I agree with him. This guy has an amazing story that I really think he needs to be able to share to as many people as possible, so that was the reason why I invited him. I'm not going to go into much more than that because I want him to tell the story instead of me. So with that, I'm going to ask Michael if he could tell a little bit about himself and give himself a little bit of background about himself. So I'll hand it over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Roger. Well, I'm from the UK, just outside London, in a place called Romford. I was living at the time. And I've always been a very down-to-earth person, very material, to be honest with you. If I couldn't pick it up and touch it, then as far as I was concerned, it didn't exist. And I found myself in a situation where my friend had been murdered in the YMCA in Romford. We were really good friends, you know. We were thinking on the same wavelength as such. We could look across the room, and I knew what he was thinking, and he knew what I was thinking. And I became friends with him because I was working in Romford Hollywood, which is a huge nightclub in Romford. And we got to know each other. He didn't like me to start with, so he was quite a good judge of character there. So the gist of it was we became very good friends, and we used to leave the club on a whatever night. I used to work Wednesday and Thursday nights, so I'd leave the club, and I had no day job because being a disc jockey was all I ever done. So we used to go to his flat, which was just round the corner from where the club was. So we'd sit there till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, playing cards and drinking drinks and whatever. And then we'd go and have a fry up in a cafe. So one particular night, in more than anything else, I noticed this. It stuck out a mile afterwards, but it didn't at the time. He was sitting there laying cards down while we were just having a chat. And he'd laid 4 cards down, and depending on the outcome of the cards, would give you either a positive or a negative answer, or a not sure. So 2 black cards, 2 red cards would be a not sure. 3 black cards would be a yes, and so on and so forth. And it went with the numbers as well. And he found out he'd asked a question, and he laid the 4 cards out, and then he'd turn the cards over. He used to do this touchy thing with his hand at the time. He'd touch the top of the card for some reason. I don't know, never did know why he'd done that. But he'd turn the cards over, and the cards gave him the correct answer. So all the questions were control questions at that point that we knew the answer to. So after it happening for like 20 minutes, half an hour, I started saying to him, this is a bit weird now because it's always right. Then we started asking it questions that we didn't know the answer to. What was coming up? Where would I be on this such and such a night? Would I be here or would I be there? And he turned the cards over, and we never did know the answer until it happened. And we found out that the cards were giving us the right answer, even to the questions that we didn't know the answer to. So he ended up, we were messing about, best friends for a few years, and then he ended up going over to Spain. His mother had a place in Spain, so he went over to Spain. He was over there about 12 years, and then he came back, and this was when he came back, it was about 2006, something like that, 2007. And he came back, he rung me up, so I went and picked him up at Stansted Airport, and he slept at my place that night because he had nowhere to live. I had a 2-bedroom flat in Romford. Mm-hmm. Then on the following day, we decided to go and see a few managers that we knew. So we went up to Ipswich to an old manager we knew up there in the South End, and it was very, very funny. Very, very funny, the things that we were coming out with, old memories. And then a few days into that, he then decided he was going to go and get a flat. So we lined up 3 bed sits, because that's all he could afford. 3 bed sits. We went to see the first bed sit in Romford, and while we was there, the third bed sit had rung up and said, could you move us forward? So, because we can't make it at that time to show you round. So we moved them forward and we went to see the third one in the second place, if you get my gist. Mm-hmm. And that was still no good. We came out of the third one and went into the second one, which was in the third position now. And that was no good. It was dirty, it was damp, it was horrible. And this happened to be right opposite the YMCA in Romford. So he came out of the last one and he went, yeah, let's try there. So we went and had a look in the YMCA, and I've been getting feelings like this all my life, and I've never really knew why. I was just writing it off to chance, really. But I got such a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach that there was something terribly wrong. So we went in there and went into the lift, went up to the 6th floor, came out, turned left, and the guy showed us the room. He'd opened up the room for us. And it was just very basic. It had a wardrobe in there and a bed and a little sink just to wash himself in. And he said, yeah, go on, I'll take it. And I'll never forget, at the time, it was £115 a week. He said, yeah, I'll have it, go on. So we went down to reception, and I was not a guarantor. I was giving him a reference. So they had my name and address and telephone number at the same time. So that they put their little card that they wrote it on into the filing cabinet. So he moved in, and then it was that weekend I got a phone call for the following Wednesday and Thursday night to work in as a mobile DJ in Birmingham, because we had a big company had gone to a particular agent that I'm no longer with in Southend and asked him for a DJ, and he said, yeah, I'll get you a DJ. So he rang me, and I was working on local radio at the time. So I took the Thursday morning and Friday morning off of local radio, and I was in my car the Wednesday afternoon, and I was driving up to Birmingham. And then all of a sudden I got a phone call from Russ. Hello mate, how you doing? So I said, yeah, all right, I'm all right. What are you up to now? I always said, I'm just going to stay in tonight. I'm not going to do anything as you're not here. He would have been round my flat. He'd have been sitting there drinking had I have not gone up to Birmingham. So he had a knock on the door, and I heard the knock on the phone. And he said, I've got to go, there's someone at the front door. So I thought at that point, it's a bit strange. He's got someone at the front door, because he's only been there a few days. So put the phone down, and then I'd done the gig on a Wednesday night and the Thursday night. And then on the Friday afternoon, I was driving back, and I had a female friend of ours ring me up. And she said, Mike, Karen her name was, Mike, have you seen anything to do with Russell? So I said, no, why, what's the matter? She said, I can't get hold of him anywhere. I said, well, he was always quite flighty, to be honest with you. And he liked his drink a little bit. So I said, well, give it a while, and then I'll try and get hold of him myself. And as soon as I put the phone down there, I pulled over into a lane by, and I called him up myself, just went straight to answer machine. So I said, Russell, call me up. We're all worried about you. Where are you, mate? And then put the phone down. And then that Saturday, never heard anything. That Saturday afternoon, I'm doing some shopping in Romford, and somebody called me up from the YMCA and said, have you seen Russell? So I went, no, I haven't. We're trying to get hold of him ourselves. He said, because we need some more money for another week. So I said, well, go into his room. He was quite a flighty person, as I say. Go into his room and see whether his passport's still there. If his passport's missing, I would say he's got on a plane and he's gone back to Spain because he couldn't get any work. And the bloke went, oh, okay, all right, yeah, no problem. I now know that was the police. I didn't at the time. I thought it was one of the employees of the YMCA. So an hour went past, maybe 2 hours, and I'm at home by now. And then my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, came round, And she'd noticed, she didn't say anything, she noticed there was a police car down the end of the road, just with 2 policemen in it, just sitting and watching. So I'm sitting there, I felt quite fluey. I had no other work on for this Saturday night, so I'm sitting in the seat like this, trying to fall asleep. And then all of a sudden, the phone rings. Hello? And the voice the other end went, "Why aren't you answering your door?" So I said, what do you mean? I said, "We're knocking on the door. Why aren't you answering it?" I said, "Nobody's knocked on my door, mate. Hang on a minute." I've opened because it was a first floor flat. So I've opened the blinds, the curtains, and looked out, and there was 2 men in suits standing there. So I put the phone down, went down the stairs and opened up the front door. And one of the guys just went, "Romford Police," and he went to barge his way in. So I stood firm because, Romford is a little bit of a rough area. Mm-hmm. I stood firm because I didn't quite know what was going on. And then he'd stepped back when he realised I weren't going to let him in, and then he pulled a warrant card out. And his partner pulled a warrant card out. And then his partner went like this to someone in the next doorway, and a WPC, woman police officer, she stepped out of the doorway with a uniform on. So as soon as I saw her, yeah, okay. Right. He said, "Can we go upstairs?" I said, "Yeah, of course we can, come on." So I said, "What's this about then?" He went, we want to talk to you upstairs." So I said, "Yeah, you can do, we're going." And this is as we're walking up the stairs. I said, "But what's going on?" He said, "It's about Russell Aylett." I went, "Oh, go on, what's he done now?" Has got to the top of the stairs, and as we're walking into the lounge, one of the policemen said, "We've found a body." So I went, "Oh my God." And I distinctly remember saying to my girlfriend, who just came out of the kitchen because she was preparing dinner, I went, "It's about Russell, babe. They've just found a body." We went into the front room, and it was typically the good cop, bad cop. One policeman wasn't saying anything, he was just staring at me all the time, and the other one was quite chatty. So he said, we've found a body, and we think it's Russell. We're quite convinced it's Russell, and obviously he's dead. And I can't even begin to tell you. It still makes me a bit emotional now. I can't even begin to tell you that room, the room felt so small, really, really small, and I felt like I was suffocating. It's hell of a thing just to hit somebody with. So they said the WPC came back, and it was really shocking, really, really shocking. My best friend, WPC, came back and said, "Do you need me anymore?" And one of the policemen went, "No, we don't need you." The YMCA there is covered in cameras. They had video footage of everything, and they were just following up from this reference card that they put in the filing cabinet, that all the people that knew him, because the police, I now know, I didn't know at the time, the police start from the centre, which is the victim, and then they work in a spiral circle outwards, and the circle gets bigger and bigger. Who do you know? So they didn't know whether I was involved. They knew I hadn't gone into the room with them, but they didn't know whether, I suppose, I'd set it up or anything like that. So they asked me questions. "Where were you Friday night?" I said, "I was in Birmingham." "Have you got any witnesses to that?" So I said, "Yeah, there's about 250 people." I said, "If you want the name of the agent that gave me the gig, he can verify that I was there, and he can put you in contact with all the sound and lighting crew that I was working with." And they never did. After that, they never did want the name of the people. "Oh, okay, no problem. And then they just sort of like disappeared. I had to go the following morning and ID the body, and that was quite an eye-opener of what happens to a body when it's been sitting there for 3 days. Apparently, the guy that killed him strangled him. They beat him a lot. 9 broken ribs, broken larynx, I think it said, the report said it had, fractured skull. They really, really beat him. And then he strangled him, and then they put him in the wardrobe. And you can see all this online if you Google Russell Aylett in Romford YMCA in the UK. You'll see the BBC reports of it all. So at the same sort of time as this, I was looking into the Da Vinci Code because it for some reason or another, and I don't know why, I still don't really know why, the whole idea of there being a bloodline of Christ.
Can I ask
yeah,
you something though?
of course you can.
I'm getting a little bit of chatter there. Hold on, let me check my audio. On your interview that you did with Wonderful World of Weirdness, there was something that stood out to me in that part of the story you just said, and I was wanting to know if you could elaborate on it a little bit more.
Okay.
You said to John that there was a link that was between you and Russell, like you had a link with one another, and you guys could almost know what you were each thinking.
Yeah.
Could you kind of go into that a little deeper, like?
Well, I mean, most people get this with family members that they've spent a lot of time with. There was a psychological link between the two of us. We were completely different. He wasn't material, I was material. He was very grungy, and I was very suit and trousers sort of thing whenever I was working. He had long blonde hair, it was bleach blonde, and he used to wear big baggy jumpers, and he'd just wander about like this with his hands in his pockets, and I was more of a standing upright and walking properly sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So we were complete opposite where that was concerned, but there was some sort of psychological link. He was very intelligent, I'll tell you that. He didn't advertise the fact, but he was very intelligent, and he understood the way people thought, and their mindset, which is where we met. Because I'm quite a psychological person myself. So he could look at me, and I'd just look at him, and I'd know exactly what he was thinking and why he was thinking it. And then he would, without me doing or saying anything, get the answer back. Now I'm not saying this is ESP or anything. It was very strange, to be honest with you. The link between the two of us was very weird. But yeah, you get that with family members. Perhaps your mother, you're like that with your mother or your father or your best friend. Sometimes you get it with them, and it's just, I put it down to at the time that it's just knowing somebody very well. Yeah, that's all I can really explain about that, to be honest with you.
Now with everything that you've gone through and you've learned, what kind of well, I guess what would you think of it now? Like, would there? Now
I know it's a knowing.
It's a knowing.
I've experienced this, and that's the best way I can explain it. It's just a knowing, and we all have this knowing. Every single person walking the earth has this knowing. We are all connected at the very basic levels of nature. It's just that over the years we've been taught to blank the subconscious mind out and concentrate on the conscious mind, the left brain. It's the subconscious mind that does the work with psychics and mediums and all the rest of it. That's the link with a global consciousness.
Okay. Yeah, so that was kind of what I was wanting to get into at the beginning, because you covered a lot of the stuff that I was interested in at that point, but then the part where you said that there was a link between you two, that was something that stood out to me, and I wanted to have you kind of elaborate on that, because to me that's very important.
We were connected, 100%. We were connected.
Okay, so I'll leave you back to the story, because this is good too. I know where you're going with this because I watched the interview, so I'm going to shut up now and let you finish. Thank
Well,
you.
at the time, I was doing going on these city breaks because it really, really got to me and gripped me. My thirst for knowledge of this subject was and still is very, very big, bigger than I've ever noticed before, and I have no idea why. I'm not a religious person, but it just grabbed me, and I had to know. So I was going on city breaks that the Da Vinci Code said works of art, certain works of art, had clues in it. So I went to Florence, a city break to 4 days in Florence, and I went to the Uffizi Museum to look at the birth of Venus by Botticelli. And it's a very, very pagan picture. Now I understand it. It's a very, very pagan picture. We went to the Louvre in Paris to look at the Mona Lisa and the Virgin of the Rocks and the Madonna of the Rocks, because there's two versions of the same painting done by Leonardo da Vinci. One's in the British Museum now, one's in the Louvre, I believe. So, I noticed while I was taking pictures that I was getting these little brown circles of light. I mean, this is about 18 months after Russell's death.
Mm-hmm.
Little round white circles of light appearing in the pictures, and it was irritating me, to be honest with you. At the time as well, when I come back from one of the city breaks, I was taking photographs in the nightclub for advertising my services to other nightclubs and as a mobile DJ. And the last photograph I took, there must have been 250, maybe 300 of these little circles of light, which started off when I was in Florence as one little circle of light. And while I was in Florence, I was saying, okay, I can see that. Don't ask me what I was talking to. I had no idea. I didn't believe in the afterlife or any sort of spirit world. Okay, I can see that. Now give me two. And then two would appear in the next photograph. And it was the weirdest thing that I've ever been through. And at one point, I thought I was actually seeing things that weren't there, and I was going mad. So anyway, we come back, and I'm getting more and more of these in the photographs. So I took the last photograph I took with all these orbs in. I took round to a friend of mine, John, and he's heavily into his photography. He's always buying new cameras, and he loves his photography. He blows them up, and he does this and photoshops them. And so I said to him that I'm having these little round circles of light turn up. I said, I've looked on the internet and they're calling them orbs. I said, but I'm hard pushed to call them that. They're moving as well in video. I used to get them. So he said, I've taken thousands of photographs in my front room, and not one of them have got one of these so-called, and he went, orbs that you're calling, taking the mickey out of me. So I said, well, let's get your camera now. He said, I think it's dust on the back of the lens. I said, but it's two different cameras, John. It's not the same camera. He said, well, I've got this new camera here. Come on, let's go in my front room and we'll take some pictures. So I said, okay. Take 3 pictures flash on and 3 pictures flash off. And he chose the wall that I stood against because I said, that wall there. He went, no, that one over there. So I said, all right, okay, we'll do this one over here. He thought I was trying to have him over. So he's took the pictures, and we went back into his little studio that he's built, and he's put the SD card in the computer, and he said, the first one, bosh, it came up full screen, 24-inch screen. There you go. Look, no orbs. He then went click, second picture, no orbs. He said, there will not be one orb in these photos. Third picture, there was half a dozen orbs. And he went, oh. He said, that's not the camera. I've got thousands of photographs I've taken with that camera in the past week. And he went, that's not my front room because I've got thousands of pictures I've taken of different animals on the table in the front room. And he said, whatever this is you. You're the only thing that's different. So whatever's going on here is going on around you. So I went, oh, come on, John, talk to me properly. I've come to you for an answer. So I decided to go and see a medium. Never been to see a medium before. And I went to see a woman called Lorraine Reese. which was a stroke of luck. She is the most amazing, frighteningly accurate medium I've ever seen. And since then, I've seen hundreds of them. So I went to see her, and I went in under an assumed name because, as I said, I was working on local radio at the time, and I didn't want her to put two and two together and then start feeding me nonsense. I wanted her to tell me what she thought or what she sensed. So I went in to see her under the name Mark or something like that. And she sat down. She said, okay. She works really strangely, Lorraine. She said, okay, so what's your birthday? So I said, oh, it's a so-and-so and so. She went, okay, born under the name, she talks like this right at the start, born under the name of under the birth sign of Gemini. And then she went, oh, I've got your best friend here. So I said, oh, have you? Still didn't take a lot of notice. Then back when we were playing cards in his flat, he started wondering, because he found it a little bit spooky. So he said, I wonder if there are such a thing as angels. And I said, I don't suppose we'll know, mate, until we die, and then it's too late because we can't go back and tell anyone. So coming forward back to Lorraine, she said, he's telling me to tell you that you really were his best friend. So I said, okay. She then described the view from his window out the back on the 6th floor of the YMCA. And then she said, he keeps telling me to tell you angels exist. And it again, it makes me really emotional. It hit me like a steam train. That's such an obscure thing to say. She said, he's shouting it at me. He's telling me to tell you this, and he keeps saying it over and over and over again because you'll know what it means. He said angels exist. So I was quite shocked, to be honest with you. I felt like someone was trying to prove something to me, but I didn't know what. So anyway, it carried on, and she was accurate with a lot of the things she said. She then said, you're going to be called in 2 weeks by somebody that you haven't spoken to for 20 years, and he's going to ask you if you want to do a part in a film. So I had the tape up until about 6 months ago, and I started laughing. I said yes, because I romp for dance at the Brad Pitt, aren't I? And then I came out of the reading, and on 2 weeks later, on a Friday night, I was driving to work. I had a mobile gig on in Southend, so I was driving down the A127, and the phone rang. So I pulled into a little lay-by and I picked the phone up. Hello? And the voice the other end said, hello Mike, it's Steve. And I went, Steve who? He went, Steve, you know, you used to, and then he told me where we worked together. So I went, oh God, Steve. I said, that must have been about, and I went, it's 20 years ago. Oh my God. And in the back of my head, I started going, he's going to ask you. He's going to ask you. So I said, what can I do for you? He said, I've got something to ask you. And the voice is getting bigger in the back of my head. He's going to ask, he's going to say it. He said, would you like to play a part in a film? Because of my radio work, this particular film needed a radio presenter's voice in the background, just on the radio, because the camera went across a radio and the radio voice started speaking, and then they wanted me for the voice. So I went, yeah, of course I would, Steve. Yeah, no problem. And he said, okay, we'll meet up on Wednesday, so-and-so, this area, that area, and I'll introduce you to the director. So I started shaking again because I got that heavy feeling in the pit of my stomach that something was trying to be proved to me. Someone was proving that this is existing. This is all for real. I seriously thought I was going mad for months, because I was seeing connections between things now that were unconnected, but I knew they were connected somehow. So anyway, the following Wednesday came, and I met Bill, the group producer and the director, the director and the writer, And Bill said, yeah, okay, you've got the sort of voice. You've got the voice I want for the radio presenter. Has Steve told you what the film's about yet? So I said, no, he hasn't said a word. He said, well, it's an English Da Vinci Code. And I went, oh my God, I've just been researching all this. And Bill, he looked at, because I was always playing practical pranks up against each other, practical jokes. Bill looked at Steve and he went, you ain't getting me this easy. So Steve went, I swear to God, Bill, I haven't said a word. So I'm just looking at the pair of them like this, like I was playing tennis with them. And he went, are you serious? So I said, yeah. I said, I've been researching the bloodline of Christ and the Holy Grail and all the paintings that have got the clues in them. I've been round to, and I told him the story about the 4-day city breaks that I was going on, and he looked gobsmacked. He said, okay, all right, yeah, you're in there. Now, because of that connection, he now wanted me to be the voice on the radio and to interview the cast and crew who were in the film. And it was Martin Kemp, Gary Kemp, Stephen Burkhoff, Danny Dyer, Alison Doody, Lois Winston, that's Ray Winston's daughter. They were big names in the UK. So it carried on. We set the shoot up, and on one of the first nights, we were doing a night shoot in a barn near Basildon, just off the A127 in Essex. So I'm standing there next to an actor who became quite a good friend of mine, and again, he was a very spiritual person. So I said, Errol, I said, how did you get involved in this? He said, it was a bit strange, really. My agent knew Billy, and then I went to do this, and Billy liked the piece of footage I'd shot in another film. He said, so I got here. He said, how about you? So I said, well, mine's a bit of a weird story. It's all to do with a medium and what have you. And it started off with the murder of my best friend in Romford. So he went, yeah, he looked interested. Yeah, he's an ex-military man. Yeah, Air Force, I think it was. Yeah. So I said, yeah, he was murdered in the YMCA in Romford. And when I said that, Errol went. So now all the hairs on the back of my neck have stood up, because I didn't like that response from him. There's something here that I'm not seeing at the moment. So he said, when was it, Mike? So I said it was it was found in April, I think it was 2006. So he said I was in the room next to him, Mike. He said, I'm the one that raised the alarm. And to be standing in a situation like that again, I started shaking. I had to go and sit down and have a cup of coffee and whatever, just to gather me wits. It's the most surreal experience I have ever been through. The chances of me just stumbling across this is got to be millions to one against. And then in my head, I'm going through all the situations that I've been through, seeing connections, understanding and getting this thirst for knowledge that I've never had before. It was a really, really weird time in my life. I now know that they call that an awakening. And my gut feeling that I was having something proven to me was spot on. I was having something proven to me because I had to go and do something. And if I didn't believe it, then I wouldn't go and do it. So after that, I started looking into the occult. I ended up writing a book which was released under the name The Truth. And I've since changed it to Water into Wine. It was a self-published one. It didn't sell many copies, so after a year I pulled it off of sale, and I've now podcasted it. So it's still out there as a podcast. But the amount I found out about the occult by doing this research is unbelievable. There's nothing nasty about the word occult. People think it's an evil word. It's not an evil word. It means secret or hidden, and that's it. It's about as evil as it gets. I've not found any reference to a devil at all. I found references to the jinn, which is one of the faiths, I can't remember the religion now, that speaks about the jinn, which are negative personalities, negative entities. But there's no, I can't find anything to do with a devil at all. Even the picture of a devil, the guy with horns, when you go back through history far enough, every god had horns, every one of them. It was a part of putting animal and human together to represent the duality of this experience that we're calling reality. The Egyptians hit the nail on the head. When you first look at the ancient Egyptians, they start to tell you about the afterlife, and it seems like they're fascinated with it. And it's not until you dig deeper with an Egyptian culture that you start to realize they're not fascinated with the afterlife at all. They're telling us this is real. They're saying the afterlife is reality. What they were fascinated with what we've got around our ears, what we call reality. That's what fascinated them, which at that time didn't really mean a lot to me. I didn't understand at all. I now understand it through looking into quantum physics, that quantum physicists are now saying that reality is made up of objects which can't be explained as being real. Recently, they said that the subatomic particles, they prove, are in two places at the same time. Einstein came across just after he'd done the double slit experiment, which is a very, very strange experiment. I'll explain that to you quickly. With the double slit experiment, they wanted to find out, he was the second or third person to do this as well, wanted to find out whether a light was a particle or a wave. So they set up an experiment to fire a single particle, a single piece of light through two slits. And then on the back wall, if the light is a wave, it would go through both slits at the same time, and it would cause an interference pattern on the back of the slits, so you'd have loads of lines on the back wall. But if light is a particle, when they fired it from the gun, it would go through one slit or the other. So if it was a particle, you'd get two light slits on the back wall. There's loads of representations of this on YouTube. If you type it in double slit experiment, you can see the easiest explanation you can. It gets very in depth. But what Einstein and a guy called Niels Bohr found out was this: if this doesn't move you to questioning everything that's around your ears, then you haven't understood it properly. And that was said by Einstein. What they found out was, while they were viewing it, the light was a particle, and when they didn't view it, it was a wave. So it changed state because it was being viewed by a consciousness. Now that is phenomenal. Out of this, I'm going to try and think of the phrase now Einstein came out with. He said, I think it was Einstein, nothing in reality is unaffected by the observer, by the fact you're observing something. It's changing because of that fact. We're not talking about the whole tree, we're talking about the tree itself. It's either there or it isn't there. Einstein said, I find it very difficult to believe that the moon's not there unless I'm looking at it. There's Zen riddles that go back quite a long way. If a tree, I'm going to try and think of this now. If a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make any noise? The answer is no, it doesn't. Because if there's no one there to hear it, there's no one there to see it. And if the consciousness doesn't see it, the tree doesn't exist. That goes back thousands of years. I stumbled across the ancient use of particular drugs. It was dimethyltryptamine and psilocybin. Dimethyltryptamine, or DMT they call it, is in a lot, most 90% of everything that's around you. It's in humans, and they don't know where it comes from. It's in plants, and it's this ancient plant use that the ancient Egyptians used to do, and they used to use during the ritual of the twice born, which was where a king became a pharaoh. There's a big difference between a king and a pharaoh. All pharaohs were kings, but not all kings became pharaohs because of this particular ritual. Now, the Freemasons know this ritual as the false death, and on tracing boards in a Masonic lodge, you can see a sprig of acacia. The acacia bush, or the acacia tree, which was rife in the Middle East around Egypt at this particular point, and Jerusalem, that contains, it's either 0.6% or 6% dimethyltryptamine. So if you set fire to it and you breathe in the smoke, you'll be off having a trip. The trip apparently is very similar to, if you take enough of it. Have you ever seen the trip that Jodie Foster goes on in Contact, the film called Contact? Well, she's in this big ball type thing, and they drop the ball after big loads of spinny things go round and round and round it like this. They were given the dimensions of this by an alien race. Mm-hmm. They drop the ball and she gets catapulted, and that's the feeling. You've been catapulted out of your body. I guarantee that somebody knew about this ritual and the effects of dimethyltryptamine when they wrote that. I would be very shocked if they didn't. I'm not saying they do, but I would be very shocked if they didn't, because they're describing it perfectly. Also, psilocybin. There was a scientist on TV recently that said if it wasn't for psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, the human race would still be dragging its knuckles on the floor. He openly said that in a documentary I was watching. I can't remember the scientist's name. But these are not things to be messed about with under no circumstances. These chemicals change your mind. They change the makeup of your mind. The ancient kings that became pharaohs, after ingesting these drugs, they used to die for 3 days. It was a symbolic death. They used to die for 3 days and then come back. And during that 3 days, the spirit used to leave the body, and then it would come back into the body again. So they'd die and come back and be resurrected. And after that point, it said, I'm trying to think the line in the Colburn Bible. That's another good book that tells you about all this. The Colburn Bible says after that time, faith was replaced with knowledge, and they could basically get in contact with their spiritual side, or psychically know things are going to happen after that point. I've been to see loads of psychics. I went to see one in Canvey Island called Grace Kennedy, amazing psychic. And this was about 3 years after Russell had died. She told me who was in the room with him. She said there was 3 men in the room. So I said, including Russ? Yes, there was 3. She said, no, 3 men plus him. So I said, no, there wasn't. I was involved in the case. I knew the police that were investigating it. There was 3 men. She said, no, there was 3 men plus him. She said, he's laughing at you now. Go and look it up. So I went and looked it up, and lo and behold, there was 3 men plus Russell in the room. And even I didn't know that. So I'm now in a very strange situation. I hate certain words: spirit world, heaven, ghost. I can't stand those words, not because the words are wrong, but because the words bring forward a preconceived idea, and it's the preconceived idea that's wrong. In 1985, I believe it was, or 83, in Princeton University in America, they started an experiment. It's called the Global Consciousness Experiment. they put together a random number generating computer. And when I say number, it was ones and zeros. It was a binary code. So this computer, they turned it on and it just churned out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, a binary code, ones and noughts on the readout. And they noticed that it was all completely random apart from certain points. And at certain points, it stopped being random. So they were mystified, apparently, when I looked this up. They got like an almanac of what had happened on the Earth, and when they put it underneath, they noticed that at the points when it stopped being random, there was major problems in the world. Earthquake, tsunami, volcano went off, 911, 9/11 was one of these events. A few hours beforehand, was it a few? Yeah, I think it was a few hours beforehand, it stopped being random. And then a couple of days or 3 days after the event, it started to be random again. So what they're saying is, they're agreeing with, if I've got this right, they're agreeing with quantum physics, that everything around you is a collection of atoms. These atoms are collected together because the universal consciousness deems it to be together. I know what I'm sounding like. I fully understand. I would have written me off years ago if I'd have said this then. But go and look. I've given you all the information. All you just need to do is just look on the web and look into books, and you'll find all this information's there. So as soon as I stop looking at this webcam now, it will cease to exist. That's what the quantum physicists are saying. This led on to a holographic reality theory, where they're saying that your reality is a dreamlike state that you're put into, and it only exists the page that you're looking at a time, the same as a game, a computer game. So as soon as you look at another vision, you've moved your vision in a computer game, what you looked at ceases to be. It isn't there anymore. And it's only there when you go back. And they're saying reality is the same as that. So going back to the ancient Egyptians, if this is correct, and quantum physicists have hit the nail on the head, they were quite right. Through their use of the ritual of the twice-born, they understood the nature of reality. And the nature of reality is, it doesn't exist unless you're there to experience it. Now, when you look through biblical texts, it comes back that God or whoever you want to look at, is always saying to us, love is the only true thing, love is the way forward, which it is. Everything else is false. Everything else is part of a duality. You don't know love until you understand hate. You don't know envy until you understand, you with me, it's all a duality. You until you understand having plentiful stuff, having loads of it, where you're envious of someone that's got all this. You shouldn't be. It's just an experience. It's just an experience, and the only true thing is love. I don't know what else to tell you, really, to be honest with you. This has taken me about 17 years to piece together. And when I was living in Romford, this was after Russ had passed, I was in the second bedroom researching all this, and I wish I had a picture. The whole of the walls had blue tack on them with A4 sheets of paper, where it was like a nutty professor's room. I was reading a sheet of paper and I knew that one line in the middle, so I'd highlight it. I knew that line meant something. I don't know why, I don't know how, I just knew it meant something. So I was piecing together a timeline and a story. And there was 3 points when I wrote the original book, The Truth. There was 3 points where I was reading a bit of this and reading a bit of that, and I'm going, that connects with that over there, so that goes there. And then all of a sudden, 3 times this happened, and again I thought I was ill. Thought I was having some sort of brain seizure or something. I I started going. Do you know when you walk into a swimming pool and it's a very cold pool, it's a very hot day, and then the water gets up to around the belly button area, and you start going
Yeah.
because you can't. That happened to me. I went. That obviously that goes there, and then that's connected to there, and I went like this, and it was a tsunami of information. That's all I can explain it. It was just unbelievable amounts of pictures. I saw pieces like a jigsaw all going in front of me, and I had to say, and I said at the time, stop, and it stopped. I got up, made myself a cup of coffee. I came back, sat down, and then I said, I didn't know who I was talking to. I was talking to myself. I'm saying to myself, right, show me slowly. And then slowly, the pieces of jigsaw appeared in my mind's eye again, and fitted into place. It was a very similar experience. I follow my gut feeling now more than ever, and I wanted to learn how to meditate properly. You never know if you're doing it right unless you're told how to do it. So I went to a little spiritualist church, and I spoke to another friend of mine called John. I said, John, I need to learn how to meditate. I said, can you show me how to do this? He went, hang on a minute. So that was his missus. So Mike wants to meditate. Have you got any spaces for him on a Thursday night? And she went, yeah, I've got some spaces. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going there and just learning how to meditate. So I've turned up this Thursday night, and they showed me how to meditate, and it was all okay. And then 3 weeks went past, and she started calling it a circle. So I'm going, it's a circle? You've heard of a witch's circle, a coven, and it can't be a coven, surely not. And then it went on. It evolved that they were teaching me how to be a psychic and a medium, and I had no idea. This is just a situation I ended up in. So when I found that out, I went, all right, don't worry, just go with it. And I'd done a few things and said a few things to people that were spot on, and in my head, as we all do, I'm going, no, ain't spot on. You've made it fit. You've made that fit your life. It was near enough, and you've gone, yeah, all right then. And then Sue said to me, right, I'm going to take you out this Thursday, and we're going to Southend, and you're going to give somebody a reading. So I went, no, don't put me in that situation. She said, well, just come with us then. So I said, all right, I'll come with you to another little spiritual church it was. So I went to the spiritual church, and then Sue said, she's right in front of everybody. There was about 30 people there. She went, Mike's going to be they call them fledglings. Mike's going to be our fledgling. He's going to give you a reading tonight. So everyone's gone, oh yeah, lovely. And I'm going, I can't do this. What are you doing to me? So I've gone and sat in the seat anyway. Just go with the flow. This is my life now. Just go with the flow. And then I started to get some very strange images in my head about one woman at the back with red hair. So she said, you getting anything? I said, well, I'm getting some strange images for that lady there, that young lady. I went, this has never happened to me before, so you'll have to excuse me if I'm wrong. I said, but I'm getting the image of a guy laying on his side. He's died of a drugs overdose. He's on red, and I can still see the pattern in my head, red swirly carpet, a 70s type carpet. He's sitting at the bottom of a big brass bed. Do you know the beds that are in Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, the film? It was like that, except it was all brass. He was in a bedsit, very small bedsit, and he had a sink in the corner. He was laying on his side. He had, and I knew he had a brown hair, but he dyed it black. In front of him were squares of silver foil. I still don't quite understand this, and a lighter and a spoon. There was no syringes or anything like that, so I'm lost now. In the drug world, I'm lost. I've never taken it, and this is beyond me. So all the while, the woman's going, no. She was 22, 23, something like that. No. So I said, okay, and I just made a joke of it. Okay, I'm just going to go and get my coat. And everyone just started laughing, and I went and sat down. So an interval came up, and before I sat down, I lost my bottle at this bit. I got the words in my head, "Don't you dare do this." But I didn't say them because I felt silly. I felt very, very silly. So I went, clammed up. All right, I'll go and get my coat. Sat down. And then the interval came up, and the woman came over to me. She went, "Look, I'm really, really sorry. I didn't mean to close you down like that." So I said, "That's okay." I said, if you don't understand it, if it's not for you, you have to say no. You don't have to worry about people's feelings. You've got to be truthful. She went, "It's just that every medium I see tells me exactly the same detail." And I went, "Oh." And in the back of my head, I'm going, "Oh my God, I've done it. Whatever these mediums do, I've just done it." And then your conscious brain starts clicking in, and you go, "No, there's got to be something else going on here. Perhaps I've worked off the look of her. There's something about the way she looks that made me think all these," and they're all doing the same thing. So part 2 starts up. Sue comes out. She said, "Go straight to this woman." She wasn't around when this conversation was happening, by the way. Sue went to the woman. "I'm getting the same image that Michael had," and she said, "He's telling me to tell you, don't you dare do this." And I went, "Oh my God, that was the bit I didn't say. I didn't tell anyone." And that again was another shock to me, because this is what the mediums do, and I've just managed to go and do it. So I started researching after that. The basic thing is, we can all do this. Everybody on the earth can do this. There's nothing miraculous. There's nothing strange about it. Mediums go into meditation for years and years and years. And what the meditation does is it allows them to drop their conscious mind so that their subconscious mind can come forward. Now, the ancient Egyptians used to fish. When the pharaoh died, they used to fish their nose, their brain, out through their nose. The reason they did this was because they pulled out the gateway, which allows that person to see reality. So the spirit, or the consciousness, I'd prefer to say, the consciousness can't come back into that body again because the gateway's been cut. It can't go into another body because they used to mummify the bodies so that the body still existed. So the pharaoh stayed in the afterlife, where he had whatever he wanted for breakfast every single morning, so on and so forth. And he was living the life that he was supposed to be living. That's what they wanted for him. They wanted him to stay there and not have to come back to this, to go through the hardships that life gives you. I've had an amazing time. 17 years worth of reading books and watching documentaries over and over again, and it's, I would never have said I would be going through this.
Now, we are coming up to the end of the hour. I have some questions to ask you. You've covered quite a bit of what I wanted to know, but if you don't mind, it's up to you. Would you be okay with going over an hour?
Yeah, of course it is.
Okay. So, there's some, there's some things that you mentioned before, like I said, in John's interview, that really stuck out to me. And like I said, you've covered quite a bit of it, to be honest, and more. But the one thing that, after you talking about, you had that link with your buddy Russell, you also mentioned about the YMCA. You had that bad feeling in your stomach. Is there a way that you could elaborate on that more, and after that kind of give us an idea of what you think that was today, like when you reflect back on it?
That when you understand consciousness, there is a global consciousness that the global consciousness experiment that I mentioned in Princeton University has proven it's there. It's possibly universal, but the apparatus, the random number generators, are only on Earth. So we only know that there is a global consciousness at the moment. The gist of it is we are all separate streams that make up this huge global consciousness. Each individual stream, this is how mediums work. Each individual stream that make up the whole lot is a separate person. So there are millions and millions of streams, millions and millions of them, which is each individual person on the Earth. The global consciousness is where the atoms are placed together to give us a visualization of reality, because this is just a visualization of consciousness. That's all it is. I know for a fact that me and Russ were connected. Now I know me and Russ were connected. We were two separate streams, but we could possibly read each other's stream. If you go back and look at and research Nikola Tesla, because I looked into him quite a bit as well, absolute genius the man was. And he openly said, and then I'm going to paraphrase this now because I can't remember the exact phrase, that my mind, it was something like, my mind is just a receiver of information that I'm receiving from the universe. I just haven't found where this stream of information is coming from yet. So he stumbled across the same thing. I think my stream and Russ's stream were just, we were more open to each other's thoughts that way.
All right. Yeah, I heard that when you were saying it, and like right now when you're talking about it, it reminds me of the receptors that we have in our brain, you know,
Yeah.
and how information is transferred throughout the brain with electricity.
Yeah.
And that's one good point that you make right there. It really stands out. Now there were a couple of other things that you mentioned that, like with Da Vinci and the Da Vinci Code. In the interview you did previously, that you said that you did the research and found out that there were codes in the paintings. Okay.
Yeah.
You went on further to say that you found pagan codes.
Yeah, a lot of pagan codes.
In these works of art. Could you kind of elaborate on what kind of pagan codes you found in there?
Well, the artists at the time were pagan under a different guise, and with art is no different to writing a book or no different to writing a song. You have to get the inspiration. It has to be something that's come from you, and then you put it down onto paper, or they put it onto canvas. So when you look at Botticelli's Birth of Venus, he's actually drawing and painting what he knows about reality, what he really thinks about reality. This is the way artists were. They were very open like this. Even Leonardo da Vinci, there was the Madonna on the Rocks and Virgin of the Rocks. There was two different. He was hired by the Catholic Church to paint this picture, and he painted one. And you have to see the picture to understand this fully. But he painted one, and then the church told him to go back because it had anti-Christian symbolism in it. What it was that. There's the Mother Mary, there's a Virgin, I can't remember her name now, and there was the John the Baptist baptizing Jesus, and they said that was the way he explained it. If I remember this right, this was a long while ago now, I looked into this. Well, Jesus in the first painting was nude from the waist down. I think it was nude fully, to be honest with you, so you could see his genitals. Now, if somebody's divine, they won't have genitals. So he had to be normal. He had to be human. And he had a belly button as well, which meant he was given a birth to. So they said, no, go and change it. So he changed it, and then they swapped the two. They explained it a different way when they started explaining it. They said it was Jesus baptizing John the Baptist. So they're saying John the Baptist was mortal, and Jesus, because you couldn't see his belly button or his genitals, then he was divine. These two paintings, I think one's in the British Museum now, and the other one is in the Louvre in Paris. You can go and see them, and they look identical. But he had to do the same painting twice and change certain things. There was something to do with the cave behind them as well. He had to change.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned, well, bringing up the birth of Christ. You were talking about that, and then you started getting into synchronistic events and talking about coincidence and guidance. Is there a way you can kind of go over that with us again?
Yeah, okay. Of course I can. Well, synchronistic events, the word synchronicity was coined by Carl Jung. Carl Jung found out that certain things happen, two completely unrelated things happen in front of him in the same space and time, and the odds of those things happening were virtually nil. So he started looking into it, and he came to the conclusion after 3.5 or 5 years, something like that it was your mind that was making it happen. So a synchronistic event would be you wake up one morning and you hear the newscaster on the radio say, and Julie said so and so and so and so, and then you put on the TV and the newscaster on the TV says, and Julie said so, and you go, well, that's a bit strange. That's Julie. I know a Julie. And then you get in your car to drive to work, and the number plate of the car in front of you at a traffic jam says Julie, and you go, well, that's a bit weird. That's a synchronistic event. So that happened for a reason. Normally, Julie would ring later on that night, and you'd say, oh, we've all had these. Oh, I've been seeing things like this all day long with your name on them. What a coincidence. They're not a coincidence at all. Nothing is a coincidence. There's no such thing as a coincidence. These things were meant for you to see because it's driving your life. There was a diary that I when I was doing all the research, I stumbled across about a guy that noticed these synchronicities going on, and he done his research as well, and he said it's from Carl Jung, so he knew a little background of it. So we started putting together a diary, and it was every single synchronicity that happened to him. So he was writing down. He went 2 years, maybe I think it might have been 3 years, and then he sat down with a cup of coffee, because now he's got an intelligent viewpoint. Now he can look back at these synchronicities and see whether they are synchronicities or not. And he opened up the diary and he finished this blog off with, and I've tried to find this blog, I can't find it since. He said, I was starring in a film about me, and I played the starring role. These things were driving my life, and I had no idea about it at the time. Now that's quite shocking, but it's true. Synchronicities are driving. These little insignificant things are not insignificant. Nothing is insignificant. If something bad happens to you with a certain type of person, this has happened to me a few times, and you don't resolve it properly, you'll come out of that situation. It could be 6 months, it could be a year down the line. You'll go into another situation and there'll be another person doing exactly the same thing. This time, you've got to think about it properly and not give the same result, because otherwise this is going to keep happening to your life. The synchronicities are amazing. They are amazing. And the synchronicities I've been through, even with the film. The film was called The Rapture, by the way.
That's what I thought was odd when I heard that, and I thought that was that's actually what caught my mind or my attention on that.
It's never been released. It's still sitting on a hard drive somewhere. I've no idea where though.
it's a shame, really.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. Now, you also talked about something else, and when you came into talking about Carl Jung, and it's okay if you don't want to talk about it, because
Okay.
I know you've talked about Ritual of the Twice Born in this interview, but when it comes to the Ritual of the Twice Born and Freemasons and the Freemason rituals,
Yeah.
then especially the Knights Templar and all of that, you know what I mean? Could you
Yeah.
kind of give us a lump sum explanation of all that put together, what
Yeah.
it was you found when you did the research into that?
Well, I started digging and digging and digging. I had a very strange experience. Nobody has ever asked me to join Freemasonry, and then while I was doing all this digging and digging, 3 people in a month asked me. The first person, I said, no, I don't want to be a Freemason. What's that? Second person, no. And I've noticed 3 in a month. No one's ever asked me before, and 3 in a month have now asked me. So the third person, I actually said yes. And I found myself taking part in the rituals that I'd written about in the book that is mentioned in the Colburn Bible, and that go back thousands of years to Egypt. The ritual of the twice born, the Freemasons call it the false death. And I don't want to say too much about them, because I made an oath not to. The only secrets are the handshakes and tokens, and I would never reveal them, because I gave my word that I wouldn't reveal them. But there are certain bits and pieces that I took part in, the rituals that I'd read about. that was quite shocking as well, how I found myself in that situation. It was a whole big ball of confusion inside my head. The ritual of the twice born is quite fascinating. They used to take the and I was seeing links all over the place. I went to Rome. This was when I went to Rome to walk around the Vatican, and I'm seeing, as I do in churches now, geometric signs jump out at me as I walk into churches. I've gone into the Vatican. Geometric signs and Egyptian signs are jumping out at me. I'm noticing them. It's almost as if someone's going, look, and nudging me. The Egyptian pharaohs used to be dressed in all white. And I don't know if you've been to Rome, but there's a place there called the Pantheon, which is a big dome-like building with a hole in the centre. It's about 20 feet across, this hole, circular hole. So the Egyptians used to dress their kings in all white robes, and then after the ritual of the twice born, they'd come back into their body. They would then lift the 3 portcullises that were blocking the passageway into the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, and then they would lead the pharaoh, which means great house. They would lead the pharaoh out, and then all the people would be outside, all applauding him, and he would then be, they classed him as the shepherd of his flock. So he was dressed all in white, and he would come out into the sunlight, and he would seem to glow in all white. And then when you look, there was an article I was reading on the plane about an art student who was interested in the Pantheon and the hole in the ceiling. At a certain time of the year, the whoever the Pope was at that particular time used to stand on a particular spot in the Pantheon, on a particular square. Squares and circles are very, very, very important, and I'll tell you about those in just a second. And at midday, I think it was midday on that particular day, as long as there wasn't any clouds, the sun used to go through the hole in the roof and shine on that spot. And there was the Pope wearing all white robes. So he used to glow in front of the people. Now that comes back over and over again, that they used to glow. Squares and circles are very big in Masonic circles. No pun intended there. Even Leonardo da Vinci done a sketch, The Vitruvian Man. Leonardo da Vinci put a square and a circle, and some Freemasons call it squaring the circle, and he put a man in the middle of it with his arms outstretched in the shape of a pentacle, which he was touching the edges, and the circle wouldn't go outside the square, and it was just perfect. It fitted perfect. He said man bridges the gap between the circle and the square. The circle represents the ethereal world, the heaven, spirit world, if you like, the consciousness, because there's no beginning and no end. It's just constant. And the square represents material world, because it's got four corners: earth, air, fire and water, everything material. So man bridges the gap between the two worlds, and that's why Freemasons are very big on squares and circles.
It's pretty good. Now I have to get you to go over numerology with me. I have the idea that you're pretty good at that by the way you discuss it and you come into the things. So do you have pretty good knowledge when it comes to numerology?
No, I've stumbled across it. I don't have a huge knowledge on the subject, but when you talk to any quantum physicist, everything around you, there's a thing called the golden ratio. There's also pi comes into it a lot, and they say that everything can get, even the branches of a tree can come down to a numerical equation. So the branches that grow from a tree, when we don't understand this, we look at the branches and we say, well, hang on a minute, they're all random. And they're not random. They're not random at all. They are perfectly in line with the numeracy that puts them there, if numeracy is a word. Everything comes back to mathematics, everything. Now this leads them on to say that we are in a holographic reality, which is like a computer game. And that's why they say it, because everything comes back to the equations and they never deviate.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting if sometime I could have you come back on here, because there's a couple of other guys and a woman that I talked to about philosophy and everything, and we just went over Pythagoras, and I really think you'd love having a conversation with these guys. They're really profound when it comes to all that stuff.
Everything comes back to geometry. Everything.
Yeah.
All the numbers. Even Freemasonry. It's got a square and compass are their emblem. It's because the compass draws a circle and the square makes it square.
Yeah.
Everything goes back to squares and circles and geometry. Everything.
And just so we make it clear with the people that are on the stream, you did say on John's interview that you did eventually leave the Freemasons, right?
Yes, I did. That was about 10 years ago now. I left Freemasonry.
Don't want you getting any flack.
No. I've not released anything that you can't find on the internet anyway, to be honest with you. Okay. But you know, if you research it enough, you can find most things about it. It's. I'll be honest with you, that the people I were rubbing shoulders with were very, very honourable men. Very honourable. Okay. If they gave you their handshake, they would stand by it.
Okay. So, is there anything else you'd like to discuss? Because
I think we've covered everything, haven't we?
Yeah, you've done an excellent job. You pretty much went through everything that I wanted to ask you about and talk about. So this was really a good interview, in my opinion. It was.
Yeah, I've enjoyed myself, to be honest with you.
Great. Now, before you go, could you give yourself a plug? Let everybody know your socials and how they can contact you, literature that you've got out, podcasts.
I'm on the internet. I'm a voiceover by trade now, so I'm on the internet as Michael Paul. Michael Paul voiceover. If you type that in, you'll find me. If you type in Water into Wine podcast, Michael Paul, I started the podcast because I had all this knowledge and I didn't know what to do with it. So I've taken the book off the sale, and I thought, well, I'll just do a podcast. It'll be a couple of hours. It ended up being 7 hours that I had to break down into, and it's just talking. That's all it is. I had to break it down into 20-minute segments because there is so much information there. You can't take it all in. It's just ridiculous. So that's why I made 17 20 minutes or 17 30 minutes, something like that it was. But it was a long while, 7 hours of pure speech. So if you type in Water into Wine podcast, Michael Paul, you'll come across that. It's all over the place. It's everywhere. So especially Anchor.fm, it's on there as well.
Okay. And I would like to extend my hand to you and tell you that you're always welcome to come onto my show anytime you want. I've got a lot of respect for you for the stuff that
Thank
you
you.
put on, and I'm coming out with a series here in the near future. It's going to be called Into the Abyss. And a lot of the stuff that you discuss is a part of the topics that I want to get into, like philosophy. I want to start something that is concerning ancient magic, stuff like that. And if you ever want to be a part of that, let me know.
I'd love to.
It's going to be a round table format too, so it won't just be us. It'll be other people as well. So
Yeah, I'd love to. I would love to.
okay, so with that being said, man, all I can say is thank you, and I hope you enjoy your day, and you have a wonderful story, man.
Thank you very much. It's 17 years. I'm never going to forget in a hurry.
I'll tell you what, you got one heck of a story, man.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and that'll be it for everybody out there. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you later.